Today on Internet Marketing Pro, we have John Lee Dumas from the wildly successful podcast show Entrepreneur on Fire. Are you legally minimizing your future tax burden and staying compliant in today's complex tax code? If not, our podcast show sponsor and personal accountant and friend, Michelou Consulting, has over 30 years experience in providing top quality professional services in accounting and tax preparation for a wide variety of clients like you. Whether you need tax return filing, planning, bookkeeping, financial statements, full service payroll, or corporate or individual tax return filing, I personally endorse you to contact Jeffrey Ressler, CPA, at 561-237-5264. That number again is 561-237-5264. And you can visit their website at jrcpa.net. That's jrcpa.net. Tell Jeff that Chad Deckard sent you from this podcast show and receive his special rate for listening to the show. Thank you very much for listening. Now, let's get on with the show. Broadcasting from the city of sun and rain off the Atlantic Ocean in Boca Raton, Florida. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation and around the world. I'm your host, Chad Deckard, and welcome to my Internet Marketing Pro podcast show. My shows will cover how to grow your business as well as topics on tips, tricks, and techniques, digital lifestyles, the future of finance, entrepreneurism. So, thank you for tuning into my show as we begin this adventure together exploring many great things to come. Now, let's cover a few quick announcements before we get started. I really appreciate all the feedback that I've been getting and what a difference it makes in motivating me to put these shows out and continually think about the next subject matter that I'd like to explore with you all. I am also very excited about all of you helping me get more subscribers by sharing my content with your social network. My weekly listener base is growing a great deal week after week, and that's the greatest payoff my listeners can do for me in giving back for my time and efforts in putting this show together. If you like my show and find it resourceful, please do your social network a favor and share, like, post, leave a comment, and subscribe to my show. I greatly appreciate your efforts and support. And particularly this week, I'm on a drive based on this following show that's coming up by what John tells me in some of the tips that you need in order to be a successful podcast show online. I am asking you now that by the end of this show, because it's such an awesome show, would you be so kind to look in the description of where you're listening to this show, or go to chaddeckard.com or cdeckard.com, that is CDECKARD.com, and look for the link that'll take you to iTunes. And please do me the favor and give me a rating and a review on iTunes. My goal is to get 200 of these over the next month so that maybe I can get up there with John and be ranked as some of the top highlighted iTunes podcast shows out there. So that's kind of my goal, and I'd really love to be able to do that because that's particularly how John has been able to get over 10,000 downloads on his show daily just more recently, and he just launched his show less than 6 months ago. So let's move on with the show. Today, I have John Lee Dumas here. He's the founder and host of a top-ranked business podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire. Entrepreneur on Fire generates over 150,000 unique downloads every single month in over 140 countries. He has a lineup consisting of Seth Godin, Tim Ferriss, Barbara Cochran, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Chris Brogan, and over 170 others. And that is why we are going to have this conversation here today with John Lee Dumas. Welcome to the show, John.
Chad, I am ready to rock the mic. Let's do this.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule with all these interviews that you are doing. It's amazing how many you've done in a short amount of time. And not only just interviews, these are like really big time, like well-known icons. I mean, Seth Godin, Tim Ferriss, Barbara Cochran, Chris Brogan. I hear these names every day in the media all the time. How about if you tell us about the story of your, evolution of, where you came from and how you got to where you are right now here today?
Well, everybody has a journey, Chad, and my journey starts way back in the country of Maine. I was born and raised in southern Maine. Actually was here for the first 18 years of my life and then went to college on an ROTC scholarship. So I was a cadet for those 4 years. Then I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army back in 2002 at the age of 22. Spent the next 4 years as an active duty officer serving our country, spent 13 months in Iraq. And then at 26, I was done with my active duty requirement. So I entered the quote unquote civilian world and tried my hand at a bunch of different things. I tried commercial real estate, residential real estate, corporate finance, tech startups. I just was really trying to get into the mix and find my real passion, find what I was really into, but nothing was really clicking with me. So lo and behold, one day I was just listening to a podcast, a lightning bolt hit me and I said, wow, there is definitely a niche that just needs to be filled out there, because there are people like myself that are driving to work every single day, that are hitting the gym every single day, that are looking to consume valuable content during these periods of their life when they're otherwise stuck, like in a car, in traffic, or on a treadmill, what have you. And there were some great podcasts out there, Chad, but none of them were producing a ton of content. It was once a week or once every 2 weeks. And I was going through so many years of their podcasts, of their content, in just a few weeks or even just a couple months. And I knew that there were other people out there like myself who were driving to work every single day, who were taking their dog for a walk, who were running along the beach, consuming podcasts because they loved the inspiration and the motivation. And I knew that there was definitely this niche that needed to be filled. So that was my light bulb moment. That's when I said, you know what? Entrepreneur on Fire needs to be born. I need to bring this to the public, to people who want a daily podcast. So when they wake up in the morning, there's that fresh podcast waiting for them to download, to consume, and they know it's going to be there for them every single day. So back in June of 2012, I laid it all on the table. I quit my job. I launched into Entrepreneur on Fire full time. And since then, it's just really been an inspiring journey for me, interviewing incredible entrepreneurs, over 200 now, highlighted by many of those that you've already named. And those numbers that you said are very exciting. It's over 150,000 unique downloads every single month in over 140 countries. And to me, that's just crazy, the amount of people that we're reaching with these amazing stories, with these amazing journeys of these inspiring entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and that's what kind of intrigued me about you in my exploration online and surfing and running into several places that it's kind of like the stars align. It's really odd because your timing is the same timing that I've taken. I launched my podcast like maybe a week before you. I took a little bit different approach and an idea of kind of like, let's do this as an exploration project. Because I knew, in thinking about it, because I was on the front end of the trend at the beginning of the internet, knowing that email marketing was a big deal. But now that, we have mobile devices and they're becoming more popular and more powerful than ever, I thought, what better time than now to be broadcasting? And as a marketer, looking for the lowest cost of marketing and getting a message out to a massive audience, what better way to do it than podcasting? And not only that, just like you, it's like the cup of Joe. I used to drive from Fort Lauderdale to West Palm Beach and back every day. And in the morning and the afternoon, I couldn't wait to actually do exactly why you do your podcast, was to listen to people that I could learn from and get inspired from. And then it made me think, when I was doing that, why can't I do that? Why can't I share? Why can't I have my own platform and do it my way and have other people involved? And that's why we are here today. So this is a really cool and exciting interview, but I totally relate with you, John. So tell me, John, you have this book that you wrote. It's on Amazon right now. Tell us a little bit about this book, because in this book, you had this journey to begin the show, but you get into some very specific details in the book about podcasting. Would you mind sharing some of those ideas with the audience?
I'd love to, Chad. I mean, I am 100% a believer in full transparency, and just to kind of jump on the back about what you were saying with podcasting and why it's just on this brink of an explosion, is because you're right. It's just this incredible, intimate way to connect with people on a completely different level. I mean, you're literally inside their heads. They have their headbuds on. You're inside. You're talking to them. You're coming through the car speakers. They're hearing your voice. they're becoming to know, like, and trust you because of that. You're becoming an authority figure in your niche. So podcasting is just really proven to become a great way to grow a very loyal audience quickly. And that was what I was able to at Entrepreneur on Fire. And so I was getting these emails all the time saying, John, I love your podcast. I love what you're doing. I'm looking to start a podcast in my own niche, in my own industry. What do I do? And, of course, I can't answer every email personalized because that would just take up every single second of my day. So I said, you know what? There's a book that needs to be written out there. I went on Amazon. I looked. The most recent book was written back in 2011 or 2010. It was crap anyways. And I was like, I can't believe that nobody's recently come out with a book about how to podcast, especially in this year of 2013 when so many changes have been made in the last year, let alone the last 3 years, which is when the last book has been published. So I set out on my journey to create Podcast Launch, a step-by-step guide to launch your podcast. And it was a very interesting and exciting journey. I learned a lot about writing a book. I learned a lot about the publishing process on the Amazon platform. And I'm very proud to say that I launched February 13th, and it's currently the #1 ranked business book on Amazon in the podcasting category. So I've definitely hit that goal that I set out to do. And the thing that I'm also most proud of are the 55 5-star ratings that come with it due to the fact that I included 15 video tutorials that take you step by step on a visual guide through the podcasting process from step A to step Z. So the book was a journey in and of itself to write. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from it, and I really poured my heart and my soul into it and talked about all the mistakes and all the failures that I made while I started my podcasting journey. And I'd be happy to talk about any of those, Chad, that you'd like to.
And when you gave me the book and we had that conversation the first time, I read your book right away. I ate it alive. I pretty much read it all in one sitting, and it just kind of resonated totally with me and kind of my own journey. And some of the things were some of the same challenges that I had, but I'll admit it. I think that I am really amazed with the amount of unique downloads that you were able to get. I didn't know some of the secrets that you told me, and I'm really interested to speak more about that later at a different time with you. But you definitely had some goodies. You made me think about it and about being a social marketer and what I talk about on a lot of my other previous shows. And I'm thinking, like, this guy really does know how to launch a product or a service. And just seeing your numbers, and it's funny when I watched some of your videos, I saw, because I use, Libsyn as my hosting, and I saw your stats, and I was like, wow, he really isn't joking. I totally understand the analytics. I don't know if anybody would totally recognize that in small print, but I saw it, and I could just peek out the numbers. I was like, wow, that's impressive. And to think that, like, you did that again with your book here more recently, getting 55 reviews. It's only just a few weeks. And when you launched before, I think I counted something like 200 reviews you had in the first 2 weeks. And, part of your business model is to help other people launch their products and services. I have to say that I'm really impressed with the numbers that you get. And, I know Josh Brogan gave you a referral or a quote that highly recommended your show and its platform to get the message out to like-minded people. So, tell us a little bit about some of the things that you do that help people that get involved with your show. Tell us about your services, things like that.
Well, thank you for that lead in, Chad. I mean, there's definitely a great thing about really being in control of a large audience, so to speak. And that's with Entrepreneur on Fire and with the idea of podcasting in general and the idea of just providing good content. You are just going to continue to grow a listener base, an audience base that really starts to know, like, and trust what you're providing. And they just want to learn and hear more. And I'm always looking to provide as much value for free as possible. And so again, listening to your audience when they reach out to you and they send you emails and they say, John, I'm having this problem. John, I'm having this issue. One thing I kept getting over and over again was, John, I love your podcast. I've always wanted to start my own podcast. It's been something I've had, on my to-do list now for 2 years, but I'm a small business owner. I'm a busy entrepreneur. I don't have the time to learn all the skills that it takes to record your audio, format that MP3, upload the artwork, upload it to a media host, get all the SEO squared away, submit it to iTunes, BlackBerry, Stitcher Radio, get that RSS feed, and then really start promoting it afterwards. They go, I don't have any idea how to do any of those things. I don't have the time to learn. I just want my voice out there because I have a valuable message to say, and I want to reach the demographic that podcasts can reach, which is just incredible. And so that really spurred me on to create podplatform.com, and that's just podplatform.com, where it just is an extremely simple service where anybody can just record their audio, which is as easy as pushing a red button on your computer, saying what you have to say, sending my team at Entrepreneur on Fire the MP3. We do the rest. We take that MP3, we format it, we upload it to our own media host, we add we add all the artwork, the title, the show notes, everything to it, submit it to all the major directories. We send an actual direct download URL link, it's called, so you can put it on your website, on your blog, or you can send it to people individually. And it's all done on 100% bandwidth. So we created this service in response to these problems and issues that people were having. And that's just something great for your listeners to take forward with is, you always want to be reaching out and engaging with your target market because they'll tell you what they need. And then you just need to answer that need with products and services that solve that pain point.
When it comes down to submitting a podcast, let's talk a little bit about syndication because, syndication is probably the greatest amount of leverage you really have in doing podcasting because, you can still put it up online like anything and no one really knows where it's at unless you kind of have a big microphone and can spit it out loud and get it into a lot of places. So tell us a little bit about, more about syndication and maybe some strategies or, what your experience is or where the best places are to get it.
Well, just like for any author, Amazon is the big elephant in the room. iTunes is the big elephant in the room for podcasters, and they have made an amazing marketplace that people all around the world can go to and search for the type of content that they want to. So iTunes has just created this atmosphere of thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds and millions of people going to their store, looking for music, looking for videos, looking for podcasts, what have you, and they're searching out specific content, and people know that that is the place to go. So when you create a podcast and you submit it to the iTunes store and it gets accepted, you are then in a situation, and I talk about this in the book, and this is very valuable information for anybody that's about to launch a podcast to make sure you launch it the correct way. When you first get accepted into the iTunes store and your RSS feed, your syndication feed is accepted to that store, you are thrown into what's called the new and noteworthy podcast section. And that is by far the best real estate in the podcasting universe. If you go to the iTunes store and click that podcasting tab, it's going to take you to the podcast store home. And those first two rows on that store home are all new and noteworthy. And what new and noteworthy means is that your podcast had to have been submitted less than 8 weeks ago. You have a mere 56 days to be a new and noteworthy podcast in iTunes. And again, it's the best advertising space in the podcasting universe. So I just stress the importance to anybody who's launching a podcast to take full advantage of this opportunity. And how do you take advantage of this? Well, when you launch a podcast, you launch it right. You don't just kind of do a test one, launch it, don't tell anybody about it, and then come back in 4 or 5 weeks and see how it's done, because you've just wasted half of your ability to have this new and noteworthy exposure. Instead, and I outlined this again in Podcast Launch, you should be launching with a minimum of 3 podcasts. You get 3 podcasts out there and you treat it like a launch. You tell family, friends, any subscribers you have, any social media followers, fans that you have, you are telling them about this podcast and asking them to go subscribe, download, rate, and review this podcast. Because when you do that, you start climbing in the rankings of the iTunes New and Noteworthy. So when I launched Entrepreneur on Fire, I launched with 3 podcasts. I went out to everybody I knew and I asked them to download, subscribe, rate, and review all 3 podcasts. And then I kept following that up with another podcast every single day because I was on a daily schedule. If you were on a weekly schedule, you would follow it up every single week. But it's simply a thing of mathematics. And again, if you launch one podcast and 100 people download it, that's 100 downloads. And iTunes is going to look at that and say, oh, okay, he has 100 downloads. If you have 3, people not only are going to download all 3, but they're going to subscribe because there's actually something to subscribe to. So then your download numbers go up to 300. Your subscriber numbers go up because people are going to actually subscribe because there's something to subscribe to. There's more than one. There's 3 podcasts there. And they're more likely to rate and review because they see it's a podcast of substance. So when you're nailing those 4 major categories, you're going to start to show up at the top of the iTunes New and Noteworthy store in whatever category you've chosen. And then all of a sudden, this organic traffic is going to start to come your way because people that have never heard about you, that have never heard about your podcast, but were looking for a podcast of whatever you're offering are going to be browsing the iTunes store. The first thing they're going to see is a New and Noteworthy list, and they're going to browse through there first. And if they see what they like, they're going to check you out. And for Entrepreneur on Fire, specific numbers wise, I was getting 40, 80, 30, 75 downloads per day for the first number of days. And then I hit the iTunes New and Noteworthy section, and my numbers shot up into the thousands. And they've literally haven't turned back since because of that snowball effect. My big numbers started even pushing me further up in the rankings, and the higher up in the rankings that I went, the more organic downloads I was getting. And Chad, just last week, my first day ever, I had over 10,000 downloads in one day.
That's really sweet. That's awesome. For a person who's a longtime marketer like myself, pretty much my entire life since I was 18 years old, I was publishing my own newspaper. I get excited with those kinds of numbers. I don't think anybody would. I mean, that is just crazy when you think about it. It's like, if you're going to do it right. And you found that the secret formula. And, I was even in iTunes the other day, kind of remembering this story when you told me before, and I was trying to analyze it a little bit closer in researching, this conversation we're having here today. And I was really amazed that I'm sitting there going, I didn't even know about that. I didn't think about it, but I'm like, does that mean I have to start over again? I mean, that's okay because I actually do have a new website where I'm going to tie, this show with a new website and so different things around this new type of show I'm going to do moving forward. And, I'm really excited about it. So I'll get my chance to do it again. And I'm going to try to do it the way that you stated there. And
you should do it again, Chad. You absolutely have a second chance. You should relaunch now the right way.
Well, I should because, I've been in the business for such a long time. I've done, all the trade shows many times a year for 15 years now. And, my mailing list is between 12 and 16,000 professionals in anything to do with internet marketing, top CEOs to, every small, maybe, people that are successful working at home. Cause, I deal with a lot of people that are just really successful at computers and they work at home and can make a great living. I'm actually one of those people that's been doing it most of my life and I like living the dream, but it's not easy, but it takes a lot of time of always constantly learning how to do things better. And that's why I like stories like yours is the fact that you found a way to do it much better and much easier, but you just got to make sure that you line everything up right and push forward. And, you could do it, and you're a perfect example. And you still to this day are on that highlighted board. So it's almost kind of like, I think of it like when you're playing like the old video games and they had the top 10 high scores. As long as you remain there and had so many votes in the first 2 weeks, I wonder you'll remain in that up there in that listing, I wonder.
No, it's so true in a lot of ways. So what happens basically is the top 2 rows of the iTunes store are dedicated for that new and noteworthy. So you have to be less than 56 days old. And so when Entrepreneur on Fire became 57 days old, I was no longer eligible and I was taken out of the new and noteworthy top rankings, which everybody is on their 57th day. And luckily for Entrepreneur on Fire, because of the momentum that I had, I immediately went to the next section down, which is called the What's Hot section. And these are all podcasts that are much more popular and get many more downloads than any of the new and noteworthy podcasts, because those new and noteworthy ones are brand new. But all of a sudden you're playing in, instead of like playing in the little kiddie pool, which I was with the new and noteworthy, now I'm playing with the big boys in the What's Hot section. But luckily, I was able to gain such momentum and keep it going that I can play with the big boys. You know, now in the What's Hot section, you have Mr. Dave Ramsey, you have Wall Street Journal, you have Jim Cramer, you have Susie Orman. So you have the big boys that are now in the What's Hot section. And these guys have, you know, huge followings. And Entrepreneur on Fire not only is still always near the top of the What's Hot section, but I'm always a top 15 and sometimes a top 10 business podcast overall. Like right now, I just pulled it up. I'm currently sitting at number 13, right between Zig Ziglar and the Wall Street Journal. So it's really, people are going to go to these top business podcasts. They're going to say, oh, well, I realize there's all these corporate podcasts out there, but let's check out this Entrepreneur on Fire. And then they subscribe, and that keeps me there. So these are all listeners that I'm getting organically because of my high ranking and the social proof that comes with it. And plus the fact I'm always asking for ratings and reviews from people that reach out to me and say, John, I love your podcast. It's inspiring. My reply is, I'm so glad you found it inspiring. If you truly did find value, I would really appreciate a rating and review. And I give them the link. And now I have over 262 5-star ratings in iTunes, which is a massive number compared with any other podcast you look at, no matter what they are. I mean, I could pull up, you know, like the Motley Fool podcast, you know, has 241 5-star ratings, but they've been podcasting since 2007. You know, I have more ratings than them, you know, in just these last 6 months, but they don't ask for it because this isn't their focus. I ask for it. And so that's another thing to really get out there and make sure that podcasters know the value of the ratings and reviews. Because then when people come to my podcast and they see that over 256 people have taken the opportunity to rate and review my podcast, that's social proof. If there was like 7 5-star reviews, they'd be like, what's going on here? But
oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, that's amazing. And, you know, that's part of the new rules of the game now with social marketing and social networks and platforms and the way, you know, marketing now is seeing it in different light. And, you know, what makes your show more powerful, too, is that, like you said, the social proof is, I mean, look at who you're interviewing and the scope, you know, the niche, you know, and your entrepreneurs and basically in this age where we are right now with the economy, I think it's going to be the age of entrepreneurs once again, because we can't rely necessarily on the old school way of the way the corporations used to work. Now it's become more of an integrated fluid system worldwide to work with people from all over.
The Industrial Revolution is dead, and it is 100% dead in the United States, and it's dying many other places. And you're so right. I mean, look at, here I am in a studio that I created out of my spare, you know, basically loft in my condo, and I'm speaking into a microphone in this little town in Maine that literally reaches over 175,000 downloaders every single month in over 145 countries. I mean, I'm closing on 800,000 downloads since I launched, which was just September of 2012.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. You know, now that you're kind of, you know, going to those heights, have you been approached more recently for opportunities to monetize your program?
I definitely have been approached, and it's actually very interesting timing that we're talking about this podcast right now, because we're about to enter at the time that you and I are talking about this right now, Chad, not necessarily the time that this is going to air, but we're about to enter quarter 2. We're about to hit April 1st, where I was just signed by 3 major sponsors, Audible.com, Squarespace, and LegalZoom, who have taken up all of my inventory for sponsorships for the second quarter of 2013, which has made Entrepreneur on Fire on pace for a 6-figure business just on sponsorships alone. So for people out there that are really wondering if you can monetize podcasts, if you can monetize having an audience, well, there's absolutely proof in the pudding that yes, you can.
That's awesome. I mean, that's really exciting. And that actually gives me like even more of that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, of course.
I have my own ideas and businesses that wrap around the show, but I do this because I'm passionate about it, because I see there's a lot of opportunity to work with businesses. People need sort of people like you and I who are passionate about doing this and understand business and can talk about it and get the word out about their companies, or that's our way of giving back, is interviewing people for free to help build them. So it's kind of that paying forward, and eventually, as everything kind of comes around, goes around.
Exactly.
You don't have any expectations, but you just put it out there and you just never know. But I can tell you this, I already know, because I've been doing it all my life. And that's the reason why I've been self-employed, is I've followed the rules. I do good business. Almost like the 4 agreements in the book of 4 agreements. I follow those rules the best I can. I'm not perfect, but if you stay in line as a good business person and you are passionate, you work and you give back to people, you should be able to sustain yourself. There should be no problem. And that's where I think people need to believe more in themselves in these times, that like, if you're just willing to get up with a really good idea, literally overnight, your story in less than a year, you went from doing something totally, completely different to now having 3 corporate sponsors paying you 6 figures. It's like you're getting paid like maybe like what some NFL players probably get, or no, the potential down the line is incredible. I mean, Rush Limbaugh, or, I'm not trying to put you in the class of there, but different.
No, you can. That's okay.
People that are like, came from just like small backgrounds at first, and then kind of rose up with their reputation and their platforms. It's amazing what talk radio or broadcasting has evolved into. And I mean, let me ask you this. Where do you see yourself maybe in maybe a year from now?
A year is really the most I think anybody should look out in this day and age, because we are in a period of such rapid transformation, such rapid change. The businesses that are going to be successful and the entrepreneurs who are really going to excel are going to be those who are just really flexible and are really willing to jump on that next wave that's coming in, ride it until it can jump off into the next one. There's no, we're not planting our flag with Kodak, for 30 years and getting a gold watch and a pension. I mean, we are looking for the trends in the economy, jumping on those trends and providing as much value to as many people as possible. And so that's where I see myself in 1 year. I see myself still producing a daily podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, interviewing incredibly inspiring entrepreneurs and sharing their journey, their life lessons, continuing to grow my audience, and just continuing to add value to as many people as possible to truly fulfill my tagline, which is inspiring millions. That's my vision. That's my goal of Entrepreneur on Fire. And if I accomplish that, then I'll accomplish any monetary goal that I set. But first and foremost, you need to lead with providing value, providing motivation, and providing content.
Absolutely. I mean, in order to manifest that, you've got to move people, and you move people by the message that you put out and that energy that you put forth. And you got a great energy. I think it's really cool. Like you said, you're from Portland. I have a family lake house. I only live in the summers about a half an hour from where you are.
Yeah.
I fly into Portland. It's beautiful up there, and my family's lived there for pretty much their entire life, but been migrating from Florida to Maine by the season for the last 60 years. So I take advantage of that, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. And maybe I'll be fortunate one day to actually get a chance to meet you in person.
You can come see my studio. You can be like, this is really where you talk to Fire Nation. That's
awesome. I'll take you up on that. In fact, I've seen a picture somewhere along the way where you showed your studio.
Yeah,
somewhere.
my About Me page.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. I was like, he's got my style. I like that, because I've had, environments like that in the past. In Florida, not quite like that. I like that northern, but I've lived in Atlanta before, and I had that loft feeling. So it's pretty cool to live like that.
Yeah, I love it.
But, I always see Portland as a small Boston, like a miniature Boston. It's a great place to visit and see without having all the traffic.
Very miniature.
Well, a little traffic, not much, but anyway, well, John, I really appreciate having you on the show. I really love to have you come back again sometime and we talk about some other really great stuff or the evolution of your show and maybe some interesting stories that you might have about some of your guests. Would you like to do something like that?
Chad, I love the synergy that you and I have anytime the mic goes to green. So let's make it happen. Let's regroup. Let's see where we're at in a couple months, because I know there's great things ahead for both of us. And I know there's great things ahead to any listeners who are really just taking this advice to heart and really thinking that, you know what, I'm going to start by providing incredible value.
Great. Well, I really appreciate your time and your efforts and giving me the time to be able to interview and tell your story. And I really appreciate the audience for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the message that John put forth. You should really take the time to check out John. John, how about you give us one more how to contact you?
So my headquarters, entrepreneuronfire.com. If you can't spell entrepreneur, like I still cannot spell entrepreneur, just go to ofire.com. It'll get you to the same place. And I have a contact me form. You can subscribe to me on iTunes. I'd love to hear from you in any way, shape, and form. And just prepare to ignite.
Yes, you are. Can also get links to John's sites in the description of this podcast, depending on how you are receiving it through syndication. But try to look in the description, or you can visit chaddeckard.com, and I'll be linked to John, so you can get to him that way as well.
You're gonna have an amazing show notes page, Chad.
Awesome, I appreciate it, John.
If you like my show, please consider subscribing to it, which you can do by visiting my website, chaddeckard.com. Or if you are an iTunes or Stitcher Smart radio listener, take it with you wherever you go on your mobile device. If you like my show and find it resourceful, please do your social network a favor and share, like, post, leave a comment, and subscribe to my show. I greatly appreciate your efforts and support, and you are part of what makes this show a success. Well, that's about it for this show. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation and around the world. This is Chad Deckard, signing off. Goodbye for now.